Hey,
Hello,
hi. Hello all.
welcome.
Welcome.
Hope you've had a good day and uh, you're doing well these days. And if whenever you join, it will be nice to see you writing to us. So whenever you join, please say hi and introduce yourselves. So we can start with ourselves.
Mhm.
My name is Anika. I'm from Bangladesh. I'm 31, and I live in Milan. What about you,
Oh,
Jadene?
oh, sorry, I'm sleepy because it's the end of the day. Uh, I'm Jadene. I'm from London in England, and I also live in Milan.
Okay. And
Uh,
today we are going to talk about jobs.
Hi,
Oh, hi, Walter. Nice
how
to
are
see you
you?
here.
Yes, welcome. You've got us all to yourself today.
Oh, yeah. So, how are you doing? Are you well? So,
Mm.
let's talk about jobs. Okay, so Jadine, do
Uh,
you want to read the first slide?
sure, but just first, I want to read about Walter. So, I'm Walter.
Mhm.
I live in Bologna, but I was born in Naples. I'm 45 years old and I'm a mechanical tester. Whoa, I don't even really know what that is, Walter. What do you mean? Do you test cars? Do you test machines? What does this mean? Tell us more. Um, so, jobs. In this focus activity, we will be looking at the present simple, talking about daily routines and asking present simple questions.
Yeah. So, mm, here are some photos that we have to match with some jobs on your left.
Okay.
So, what are these jobs? If Walter, if you know the answers, if anybody else knows the answers, please type it up and um, tell us. So the first one. Oh, Walter here has answered your question, Jadine.
Ooh. Okay, so do you mean that so I test, and we'll talk about this later today, why we say I test mechanical products that are made by 3D machines. So do you test products made from a 3D machine, or do
Mm-hmm.
you test the products using a 3D machine?
Hmm. Is a 3D machine a printer, like a 3D printer?
Yes, I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Okay.
So, what
Oh, I
is the
can't stop
first
yawning.
job? Yeah. So if you guys don't know, yawning is, this is yawning. Yawning is contagious, some people say.
I think it's true.
So here we have different jobs.
Hmm.
Maybe we can take turns in talking about each one of them. So do you want to help me match with the first job, Jadine?
Sure. And Walter as well, match it with us. Maybe we'll just read through the job names for pronunciation.
Good idea.
So we have a journalist, a receptionist, a designer, a police officer, a photographer, and a nurse. And notice that I use the article a or an all the time because we don't say I'm teacher, we say I'm a teacher. Okay, so when we're talking about jobs, we always use the article a or an. Um, So Walter, please tell us what you think these pictures are. Um, but so Walter says, no, not a 3D printer, but an optical laser. Okay, this is way beyond everything I know.
Interesting. Very scientific.
Okay, exactly.
A
So the first
journalist.
one is a journalist, or we can also say someone who is on news TV channels. We can say they are a reporter. Whoa, he's got all of it. He's got all the language. Excellent. So we can say she is a journalist, or because she is in front of a camera, we can say she is a reporter as well. Because journalists, we usually say if they write the news, but if they
Mhm.
talk about the news, we say they are reporters.
Sure.
Okay. So then what about this man? I can't really see the picture. Anika, can you describe
So
the picture
I'm
to
going to
me?
describe the picture. So he has some clothes behind him. He has a measuring tape around his neck. So probably he wants to
Okay.
measure things out and make some clothes. Great, Walter. So he's a designer. So maybe he works in the fashion industry and designs clothes, which I think must be a really interesting job to do.
If you're good
Any
at
sort of
art,
designing or
then
something creative.
sure.
Yeah, so yes, thank you, Jadene. So she has nicely written down the meaning of measuring tape. It's a device used to check length of items. So yeah, I've been recently experimenting with sewing some little different things, and
Ah,
it's been interesting. Do you know how to sew, Jadene?
no, no, I'm terrible.
Okay. So what is the next job, Walter? So I'm gonna describe the picture here. She is answering the phone. She has a phone in her hand.
So Walter says she's a
Hey,
receptionist. Exactly.
great. And what do you think of the next one? So this is a person who helps the doctor taking care of patients. So patients are people.
Mm.
Oh, well done. So she's a nurse who takes care of the patients. So patients are people who are sick and are in the hospital. So the next person has a camera in his hand. So don't be confused by the word camera because it can have a different meaning in Italian. So camera is a machine which you use to take photos.
Yeah, you can
So
say
yes.
photos or pictures as well. Both are acceptable. You can say they're taking pictures or they're taking photos. Excellent,
Yeah,
Walter. So he's a photographer and he is a police officer. Fantastic.
great. Okay, so that's all the job on this slide. So among all these jobs, what do you think is the best, Jaden? What would you prefer among these? Or
Maybe,
Walter as well?
maybe to be a journalist, I think would be really cool. That depends on what you're reporting.
Mm,
If I have to report about something I don't like, maybe it's not as good.
mm,
And if not a journalist, maybe a photographer is nice again. But if you're taking pictures of things that you want,
mm.
but it might be difficult looking all day through a camera. So I think for me, journalist is the best.
Okay.
And what about you, Anika?
So I think for me, a designer would be something cool to
Hmm.
be because it's a creative job and creating things is always fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so I can see someone else has joined us. So tell us what you think is a really nice job to do, or maybe your dream job. Okay. So we have some verbs on our left this time. and we have to match them with the photos here. So can Jadene help me read the list of verbs here?
Sure. Sure. So we have talks on the phone, wears a uniform, works in an office, works in a hospital, writes and takes photos.
Yeah.
So some of them I think are quite obvious, but some of them maybe there is some vocabulary that you're not so sure about. But we can talk through it anyway. So let us know, Walter and mystery viewer. Oh, okay. I prefer a photographer because he uses a fantasy for your job. Okay. Okay, I kind of understand. I kind of understand. So I think he's saying he prefers the photographer because
maybe he uses his imagination.
Yeah, no, I think so. And kind of like what he likes, what he's interested in. But just I think the main grammar point, Walter, I'd mention here is that when we're talking in the third person, so when we talk about she, she or it, we always end the verb in an S, okay, or in an ES. So, for example, we would say, I use my imagination, but I would say Anika uses her imagination. So he uses his fantasy or his imagination for his job.
Yeah.
Because we're always talking about him. But good, nice. So yeah, which vocabulary, which description goes with these jobs?
Okay, so you can start matching. So you can write journalist and then type up the verb that you think is correct. So the journalist that you can see in the picture is actually a reporter, as Jadene has said before. She reports the news in front of a camera. A journalist is someone who, what does he do? What does he or she do?
So journalist, designer, receptionist, nurse, photographer, and police officer. And be careful with pronunciation for some of these words, because in designer we don't pronounce the G. The G is silent, and in photographer the PHs make an F sound in English. So photographer. Okay, so Anika, maybe we can do these. So a journalist, what does a journalist do?
So she writes. A journalist writes.
Yeah, so they write the news or they write articles. So one story in a newspaper or on a news website is called an article.
Yeah. So a designer here works in an office. Okay, so based on the picture here, he is in an office where he sits at his desk and designs things.
Really?
So a receptionist.
Okay.
Well,
yeah, okay, sure. And yeah, I prefer what Walter says. The designer draws clothes.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm not sure how I feel about a designer works in an office. Also, I actually think designers work in studios, which is like a design
you're right.
space. So I'm not sure about this slide. Okay.
You're right. In a studio. Well, it really depends. Like if you think about fashion designing, or it could be a designer of buildings. An
Ah,
architect.
it's true. It's true.
He would work in an office. Or a
Yeah, I
graphic
suppose
designer would work in an office as well.
it's true. It's true. So graphic designers um design using computers.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, that's really based on context. Anyway,
Yeah.
so then we have a receptionist.
So she does a variety of things, but what we can see in the picture gives you an idea of the correct verb here. So I'm just going to give the answer. So she talks on the phone,
Okay, so we can say
among other things.
talks, or we can say speaks.
Hmm.
These words are basically the same.
Yes. And then we have the nurse. So she's wearing a uniform in this picture. So she wears a
Mm,
uniform. So,
mm, mm,
oh,
mm.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I made a
No,
mistake. I'm sorry,
but
guys.
she also does wear a uniform. It's true. And
Truth.
again, no, but it's true. She does. And so notice, guys, that when we're talking all the time in the third person, so we're always talking about he or she or it, the journalist,
Hmm.
the designer, and we're always using our verbs ending in an S. So a journalist writes, a designer works, a nurse works.
Mhm. That's right. So a nurse works in a hospital. And of course, a photographer takes photos. So this is something to be careful of because I heard a lot of students use the wrong verb. A lot of students say make photos, take photos, do photos. No, it's take photos or take pictures, as Jadene
Hmm.
mentioned before. And we have a police officer. He wears a uniform, of course, among other things. So the word wear, if you wear something, you have it on. So you wear, I'm wearing a Myes t-shirt. So wear is when you have on
Yes.
a piece of cloth.
Yes, but when you
Yeah, good job, Bolton.
so I always think so remember though to wear is when it's already on your body. Okay? Um when I'm wearing it for the first time, we say to put on.
That's right. So if you're putting on your shoes, you are
You're
you're
placing your foot into the shoe.
yeah, it's funny how we speak sometimes. It's
Like there's
on
no
your
other
body.
way. But yeah, no, it's true. When it's on your body, then you're wearing it.
Yeah.
Because it's very strange. For example, if
Mhm.
you're going outside, it's very unusual to say, "Oh, I wear my jacket,"
Hmm.
because no, you're not
Mhm.
wearing your jacket. But you
Mhm.
can say, "Ah, I will put on my jacket."
Yep.
So I will put it onto my body.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a really good. That's very useful to know the differences. So let's talk about this person in the photo, in the picture. What's his job? So he says, I'm a chef. Notice the sentence structure. When you talk about your job, you say I'm and the article a. If the job starts with a vowel, with a, e, I, o, u, you use an instead of a. So you would be, for example, I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer. I'm a chef. I work in a restaurant. So for me and Jaden, it would be we are, okay, let's use first person to make it easy. I'm a teacher. I work in a school. I wear a uniform. So I work from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. and I do not travel for work. Okay. So what about you guys who are watching? Tell us about your job. Use the same sentence structure. I'm a, I work in, write the place. I wear a uniform. If you wear a uniform, write I wear a uniform. If not, the negative of this would be I don't wear a uniform. So for my job, I don't wear a uniform. I wear other clothes. I work from, um, so the time you start to the time you finish. So I work from, it depends on the day for us. We start work on at different times on different.
Okay. So, oh, there we go.
The earliest we start working would be 9 o'clock, and the latest we finish is 9 o'clock. And I do not travel for work either. And
Mm.
what about you
So
guys?
this, so just so you know, when they say I do not travel for work, of course he travels to get to work and to come back home. But this
Mm,
phrase means I do not go on business trips for my job. Okay?
mhm,
So if you travel for work, it means you have to go for business trips. Or maybe you are a freelancer, so you go from one client and then you travel to another client and then you travel to another client. So tell us about your job, but I can see that Walter has started using the third person. So to tell us about his job, which is great. This was the next step, but that's fine.
mhm,
So he says he is a chef. Good. So we change the verb to be.
mhm.
He works in a restaurant, so we conjugate the verb differently. He wears a uniform. Great. So how would we finish that, Anika? What do you think? How would we talk about the chef? I work from 11 till 8 and I do not travel for
Hmm.
work.
That would be he works from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. So
Hmm.
again, S with the third person singular, and he doesn't, not I don't, but he doesn't
Exactly.
travel for work.
So the auxiliary verb
Hmm.
changes. When we use a negative, we
Hmm.
don't need to change the main verb because we change the auxiliary verb.
Hmm.
So it would be he travels, he doesn't travel. We don't make it he doesn't travels. It's too many S's. Okay.
Yes,
So
just once
remember
is enough.
exactly. If we change the auxiliary verb, we do not change the main verb. Okay. So only one verb is being changed. Oh,
Okay.
great. And Walter has told us about his day. So I usually get up at 6:30 a.m. I go to work by car. Great, by car. I start work at 8 a.m. I wear a uniform. Wow. I finish
Oh,
work at
really?
5 p.m. I get home at 5:30 p.m. and I start quarantine at 5:31. So, Walter, are you still going to
Oh,
work in this period?
I'm
It's
surprised.
amazing. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
And anyone else
I
watching as
actually heard a
well?
lot of people started going to work.
Really? They've started again?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Not everybody, of course, just a few different places. And I can actually hear a lot of cars in the morning. Not a lot, but more than usual.
Really? I guess
So
more
at
and more
least some
people,
people have started.
the
Yes.
economy needs it, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's hard to find a way around.
Mm,
So we can move ahead to the next slide here. So this was the next step, the third person singular, which Walter has already given us. He's a chef. He works
mm,
in a restaurant.
fantastic.
He wears a uniform. He works from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. and he doesn't travel for work. Right.
Perfect. So if
We
anyone
have
has
another
any questions as well, please let us know.
Okay, so we're going to practice asking and answering questions. Um, so normally when you ask someone something directly, you use do you. Okay, so you is the subject and the auxiliary is do.
Oh,
And
that's right.
instead, if you ask about another person, you use does. So it would be does he or does she? So the first question.
I want to say something. Sorry, just
Oh
before
yeah,
we
go
start.
ahead, Jadene. I'm sorry.
No, no, it's okay. I noticed on the last slide, but I almost forgot. The
Mm-hmm.
title was "What do you do?" or "What
Yeah.
does he do?" And
Mm,
this is really important because when anybody asks you, or somewhere this was the title, when anybody asks you,
mm,
"What do you do?" they always mean, "Do you work or do you study? What is your job or what are you studying?" So I know lots of people are a bit confused when someone says, "What do you do?" Do they mean
mm-hmm.
as a hobby? Do you mean right now? But we
Yeah.
mean in general, this question is always, "What is your job or what are you studying?"
Good point there. Hmm. So
Mm.
if you're saying what do you do in general, it always refers to job, but only when it's specified, like what do you do on Sunday afternoons? That means um, on that specific time, what do you do? It's your free time, right? Oh, Walter
Mhm.
has some specific questions for us based on the next slide, I
Ooh.
guess. So he's asking me, do you use a computer? At the moment, I use a computer for my job because I'm working from home. And Jadine, do you travel for work?
Um, no, no, I would like to. Um, but also I've only been
Really?
working with Myes for a month. So I'm a new teacher with Myes. So maybe in some months they will send me on some
Hmm.
business trips to the other schools. It would be nice.
It would be nice. You can explore other cities.
Okay, yes. And so I like this question number three. Do you wear a suit? So what is a suit?
So a suit is a formal clothing. So this is wearing a suit. It's
Yeah.
it's comprised of a jacket and either a pair of trousers, or skirt. Really formal. So do you wear a suit, Walter, at work?
I think the Italian word, but maybe this is very wrong. I think it's
Hmm.
completo.
I'm not sure what suit is in Italian. Um, yeah, only formal occasions and important meetings or some jobs you need to wear a suit. So I'm happy I don't have to wear a suit at work. I do not like wearing them. But
Ah,
teachers
okay. At
at
my age,
Myes, no.
no, because because I live in Milan, so of course I teach where I live. I
Hmm.
cannot teach in Florence because it's too far. But
Yeah.
sometimes we do different training. So you meet the different teachers from other schools and you share skills to
Hmm.
learn more from each other.
Sure. I wonder which school Walter belongs to, because we have three
Yeah.
schools in Milan: Mervilli, Montenero.
Ah, but I thought Walter is in
TXT.
Bologna, no?
Oh yes, of course. I'm sorry.
Maybe. No, it's okay.
Oh, I don't
But
know the schools there.
I think there are more schools in Bologna as well. Maybe more
Okay.
than one because I've seen on some documents Bologna one.
Hmm.
And we have
Oh
Milano
yes,
one, Milano two.
yes.
Okay,
Hmm.
so Anika, and also everyone watching, I'm curious about question number five. You guys talk on the phone at work. And obviously, this
Hmm.
doesn't mean to your friends. It means you speak to clients. You have to speak on the phone to internal or external
Hmm.
people. Oh,
Mm.
so he says, webinar Myes has a lot of teachers from Milan. Yes, this is because we were the first place to be quarantined. So we had to do something first.
Yeah.
But there are still
Mhm.
lots of just so everyone knows, we have updated our online platform as well. So there are still lessons available online, and I think definitely in Milan. So I'm assuming now all over Italy. They're also doing my smart lessons online. So this is an option for anyone who is tired of the webinars.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So do you
Hmm.
talk on the phone, Anika? I know, but how about in your last job when you worked in research? So Anika
Um,
used to be a chemical engineer. Is that correct?
yeah, that's what I studied biochemical engineering, but I have worked as a researcher for a bit. But
Did you
then,
ever did you ever
hmm?
talk on the phone?
When I was a researcher, I didn't ever have to talk on the phone, but I once had a job where I only had to speak on the phone.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, it was an
What job
yeah,
was that?
so it was an event organizer. So I was a salesperson.
Oh,
Had to call up people to convince them to come to our events. It's a really difficult job.
wow.
Did you ever have a job where you had to call people?
Yes, I used to work on a helpline.
Oh, also a
So
hard
a
job.
helpline, no, it was okay. It wasn't
Oh,
so bad because people were
mm,
calling me for the help. I
okay.
didn't have to call anybody. So a helpline is
Hmm.
the place you call when you need information.
Hmm.
So when you need information or advice.
Hmm.
And this was just a summer job. So it was,
Okay. Oh, that's nice.
it was actually, it was really nice. The office I
Mm.
worked in was lovely.
Mm.
Very funny.
Yes. So
Um,
we have talked about travel for work. Do you travel for work? If you're watching, let us know if you guys work from travel for work.
you say work from home.
Work from
uh, Before quarantine, everyone wants to work from
yeah.
home, and now no one wants to work from home.
I don't know. I've gotten a little bit used to it, but no, I think it's more enjoyable working in the school.
Depending on the job, I think if you have a
Mm.
very independent job, then it's
Mm.
great to spend one day working from home. But if your
Mm.
job involves interacting with people like ours, it's horrible.
Yes.
Working from home is horrible.
Okay. Moving on. What's her job? So let's talk about this person and you will complete the sentences. We don't normally say teach, location, give up, get up. So what do you say instead? So
Yeah.
remember to change your verbs because it's third person singular. She, what?
Sorry, I just dropped everything.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Oh, Walter asked a question. Teachers, do you wear a uniform? No, we don't, fortunately.
No. Sometimes there's what's called a dress code,
Hmm.
and this is not a uniform, but it's some rules about what you should wear.
Hmm.
Um, as private English teachers, it's very casual. There is not really a dress code. But for example, in public schools, so schools with, children that they have to go, um, for example, teachers cannot wear certain outfits. Maybe especially for women, there are lots of restrictions, like they cannot wear very short skirts or
Mm-mm.
etc. So there is a dress code. You are not given a uniform, but there are some rules about what you should or should not wear. Um, Similarly, if you work in a science lab, maybe there is no uniform. But maybe you
Mm-hmm.
have a dress code, like you should cover your arms and legs because you're working with some dangerous things.
I remember when I was working in a lab, I had to wear a lab coat, a white lab coat, to cover
Yes.
myself because there are some chemicals that could be dangerous. So maybe we should give them the answer. So what can we say with teach, Jadine?
Um, so I think clearly she is a teacher, but we want to ask more about her job. So we
Mm-hmm.
can maybe say, what do you teach?
Mm-mm.
Or what does she
Yeah.
teach?
What? That's right. So,
Whoa, Walter has a
oh,
whole
I'm
life
sorry.
story for her. So she has
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just clicking too fast. Okay.
okay. So Walter says she is a teacher. She gets up at 6 a.m. She goes to work. I understand why you've put the S, but work here is a noun. So the noun doesn't change. She goes to work um, by bus or scooter. She starts work at 8 and she stops work at 3 p.m. probably. Okay,
Nice.
lovely. Lovely. But how would we ask her these questions, Walter?
Mhm,
Because you seem to know a lot about her, but how did you
mhm.
know? What did you have to ask her? So we said for the first one, to find out what she teaches, we say, what do you teach? Or what does she teach?
Yeah. And for location, the question word is where. Where does she
Exactly.
teach?
So where we always use for location,
Mhm.
if we want to know the location of something.
Yeah.
Um, and Walter, okay, so you said she teaches school, but don't forget the main verb. Nearly, really nearly. So
Ah.
we spell it teaches. Oh, I've spelled it wrong. Sorry. We spell it teaches. But yeah, good. We would pronounce it the same way. So we would ask her, where does she teach?
Mhm,
So what is we want to know about the subject, where, we
mhm.
want to know the location. And then the third question is about time. So what is the question word we use for time?
So the question word we use for time is when.
Exactly. We say when. We can also say what time,
Mhm.
but when is okay. Um,
So
and
similarly,
then
we would ask
I was
when
going to
or
say
what time does she get up?
exactly. And then for the fourth one, we're talking about mode. So what word do we use to understand the mode? So the way something is done.
Mm-mm. Um, are you talking about the fourth one, Jaden? Work from or to?
Oh no, sorry.
I thought it was like the time, like
No, that is
no.
time. I read it wrong. What about the fifth one? I don't know what that question is. Is that
So
also about
I
time?
think maybe you would ask what time does she start work and what time does she
No,
finish
no,
work?
for the fifth one.
So go home. Okay, so go home. I would ask when does she go home or
So
how
is
does
the
she go home? Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so
Yeah, I
this
think you're
no,
right.
but I think it's wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
think this isn't right. But they're different questions.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Anika, you can show us.
So, how is the method? Yes, or the way you do things. So, if we want to know if she goes home by car, or she goes on foot, or she takes a bus, we want to ask, how does she go to work? So, Walter, for example, told us that he goes to work by car. So, he drives to work. Um, Oh, Walter here says she works times because it's different times, so you need plural 6 times a week. Or you wouldn't say 6 times, 6 days a week. Okay. So for us as well, we work 6 days a week, sometimes five if you don't work on Saturdays. What about you, Walter? How often do you work? Do you work 6 days a week, 5 days a week? Okay. So we can move on to our next task here. It says, what's your job? Write 5 sentences about your job. So I think we have covered this
Yeah, I think so.
earlier.
Walter says he works
Yeah,
5 days a week.
yes. So we can just move on to the next item here. So we're going to talk about third person questions. We talked about it before. We said use the verb, auxiliary verb, does she, for specific questions. But if your question is a yes or no question, this is the structure. So a yes or no question or a closed question is a question which has only two answers, two possible answers, either yes or no. In this case, you put the auxiliary verb first, then the subject, and then the verb. For example, does Diane work in a school? You can either say yes, she does, or no, she doesn't. Okay. So, for example, does Wayne so maybe you can talk about, we can finish this question by asking about his job. So if I ask, does Wayne teach English? So your answer would be no, he doesn't.
Exactly.
Okay. So we're getting your replies a little later, but yes, she does is the right answer. So if we say, does she teach English? Does she teach? Yes, she does. Okay. But if I say, does Wayne play football? You would say, yes, he does. Okay.
Ah, so this question is a bit different, Walter. So
Mm-hmm.
if your main verb is to be, then we don't use the auxiliary verb do or does. We just say to be, so the verb first, and then the subject, and then we finish it with the object. So is Wayne a great footballer?
Mm-mm.
Because your verb is to be. If your verb is anything else, then we use the auxiliary verb. So if we say Wayne plays football well, we can ask the question, does Wayne play football well? Because our verb is play. Okay?
Mm-mm.
This is the only difference. To be is special.
Yes. Okay. Here's another example. Does Mary, and you have to complete the question. Try this one, Walter. So you are supposed to use any other verb and not verb to be.
Okay, and
Can you
Mary
think?
is the woman on the right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the woman working, not the woman, not the woman expecting a baby.
So you can use any other verb. You can use the verb work. Um, you can use
Yeah, you can talk. You can use the verb wear. So you can talk about the place she works. You can talk about uniforms. You can talk about other things. You can talk about hair color.
Yeah.
which is any verb that is not to be.
Okay. So there is a delay in answers. So since time is limited, maybe we can give an example. So I
Sure.
would say, so Jadene, does Mary work in a hospital?
Yes, she does.
Okay. So nice. And
Um,
if I, yeah.
okay, so I can say, does Mary um, wear blue?
No,
Ah,
she doesn't.
doesn't. Okay, so almost, Walter, but the only thing is that you are missing your verb because we have the auxiliary verb, does, we have the subject, Mary, and then we have the object, which is a uniform, but we need a verb. Nearly, yes. So does Mary wear? Because remember, if we have the auxiliary verb, we don't need to change the main verb. So does Mary wear a uniform? Yes, Mary wears a uniform. Okay, so nice. Really good. Anika, you there? Okay, so I think Anika is frozen, not me, but I'm not sure. So in case it's Anika and not me, oh, she's gone. Okay, so it's just us for the last few minutes. Don't worry. But you did really well. And then, okay, so maybe you can tell me then, Walter, what's wrong with this question? So remember the order that we put our questions, okay? So if it's a question with a different main verb, we do the auxiliary verb and then the subject and then the main verb. If it's a question with the verb to be, so am, are, or is, what is the word order? How can we correct this sentence? Or this question, sorry. Um, and just while we wait for Anika to come back, I think I have the slides. Ooh, okay. Okay. So I'm not sure if you've replied yet or not. But don't forget, if we're asking a question with the verb to be, so we still put the verb first. So we would say, is it correct? Not, it's correct. Yes, I did answer you, but I mean for this. So you said to me, does Mary a uniform? And then you said, it's correct. So you put the subject, it, first, and we always in a question start with the verb, okay? So it should be, is it correct? Okay. So we're basically at the end of the lesson now, and I don't think there's anything extra to cover. It's just more examples of, does someone do something? No, he doesn't. Or yes, he does, for closed questions. So just to quickly summarize then what we did today, we looked at different vocabulary for different types of jobs. So that included a journalist, being or a reporter, a receptionist, designer, police officer, photographer, and nurse. And don't forget about the silent G in the word designer and the F sound that PH makes in British English and American English, all English. Then we looked at describing someone's job in the third person, so how the main verb will change so it ends in an S. And then we looked at different ways we can ask questions. So if we're asking you, we would use do. If we're asking about he, she, or it, we use does. And finally, we look at closed questions. So if they have the verb to be, we always start the question with the verb to be. And if they have any other verb, we use the auxiliary verb do or does, the subject, and then the main verb. Okay. So if there are no other questions, thank you so much for watching, and especially Walter, thank you for being so interactive, because it makes the job a lot more interesting when there's someone replying to you. So yeah, have a good evening, guys. Okay. Bye bye.